All right, I am back with my weekly soccer rant on Monday, and so I'm going to get this one started. I'm going to have to do it relatively quickly, so it's not probably going to be as long as normal, but this one is discussing pay-to-play and the problems that come with that. So I think you guys are going to like this one. Stay tuned and make sure you're checking this page out for everything regarding pay-to-play or most of the stuff, and I might have to finish it later in the day, but make sure you're staying tuned, so let's get started. So while I'm getting this going, I want to hear from you. What do you know of pay-to-play? And do you think it's a good thing or a bad thing in our system, in our soccer society? So let me know, and here comes the rant. Stay tuned. The first thing is I want you guys to understand, if you don't know pay-to-play essentially means you're paying to play a sport, right? So you're paying a club, an organization, or whoever to play. And there's not anything necessarily wrong with that because somebody has to pay for it, right? Now, that's not an issue. Now, the biggest issue I have is associated with the cost of some of that. And I want to start the conversation with this. There's a player that I train who this year alone, his family will spend almost $15,000. Actually, that was their low estimate, but upwards of $15,000 to $20,000 this year on soccer. And that includes, for example, tournaments, coaches' fees, travel, club fees, all that, hotels, whatever, whenever they go to tournaments, flights, things like that. And he plays U15. And his family's going to spend $15,000+ at a minimum on soccer. That's crazy. Now, of course, that's not everybody. That's just one extreme example I'm giving you. But I'm sure that happens across the country. People paying ridiculous amounts of money for their child to play sports. And I get it, right? There has to be fees involved, right? There's insurance fees, there's field rental fees, there's all these type of fees. I get it. Now, again, the problem comes down to this. Because of the model that we have in the society that we have, and the way that it's a open market, right? It's free. Anybody can kind of get involved and make their own business out of it, and that's completely normal. The problem now is the cost is rising for the average family, right? And it's going to keep going up and up and up. Now, what normally happens is, and this happens across the country, is that with the pay-to-play model, the focus is not on development. It's not on making kids better. It's about getting results. And what I mean by getting results, it's about winning at 9 years old, 10 years old, 12 years old, 11 years old, 13 years old, instead of developing players first and then win. Okay, does that make sense? Because if we're going to develop players for the long term, when I say long term, actually be able to compete at a high level, for example, the national team, or to go over to Europe, they have to have a development process first. So if they're being told, okay, we have to play kickball, and this is usually what happens with pay-to-play in a pay-to-play market, is kickball will reign supreme because people can jump ship. If I'm paying you for a service, I can leave tomorrow because I don't like it. And I can go somewhere else and go to the next club. If I don't like it, I'll leave tomorrow. If I don't like it, I'll leave there and go to the next one. So that happens because of the model that we have. So then people want to be on a winning team because it looks good. And again, everybody wants to win. I'm not against winning. It's the process of how you get there to win. Right? Are we teaching our young athletes, our players that might be future national team players or whatever, how to actually play soccer? Or are we teaching them how to win versus developing the soccer player first? And that's where I draw the line with pay-to-play is, there's, like I said before, we need a mandate from U.S. Soccer. We don't have that mandate saying development must come first. And so we're going to continue to struggle to develop players because of the model that we have. Put it to you this way, right? A lot of people, whether that's a player, a parent, a family member, or whatever, aren't educated in the process. So when they think of results, right, they think of results as winning and going, okay, well, if my child's team is winning, that means they must be doing well. Now, part of the problem with pay-to-play is it's a very complicated system. So we have so many different levels of competitive. We have, for example, Division 1 through 4 in competitive. Then you have an MPL league. Then you have a ECNL league. Then you have a DA league. So right there's a bunch of different levels and platforms that you can play in. But you're still playing competitive. But it's what level are you at? So until you know where you're playing at, you might be playing, Division 4, but you think, your kid's an all-star. And again, it's education, because if your kid's winning, you go, oh, my child must be doing a good job. He must be getting better. But deep down is your player actually improving as a soccer player versus just winning? And that's the question that we have to figure out is, when are we going to flip the model to say, okay, it's about the development process first. Winning will come, but let's do the right thing for the kids and for the game. Develop the players first, And then the real results, longer term. I'm going to even tell you something really funny too. I spoke to a friend of mine who coaches at the DA up north, and he goes, we expect players that come into the DA, which is at U12 now, at the age group of U12, they expect players to have the fundamental basis. And he goes, most of the kids they look at, they don't even have that. And that's because everybody's so focused on winning right now. Everybody's like, oh, we have to win. Because guess what? If a club doesn't win, or if a team doesn't win in a club, people are going to leave. And they're going to go, you know what? I got to go somewhere else because my child's not winning. Versus saying, you know what? And again, it depends on what the coach is doing. I mean, I got to make sure that's clear. And the way the coach is training, developing, whatever. But because we don't understand the process of what it takes, and I'm going to be honest, a lot of us are uneducated in this process of what it actually takes. We think that results matter the most at younger ages, and they don't. Is it a great thing to win at U12, U13, U11, U10? Yes, it's great. It feels good winning. But in the end, what matters is the process to get there. Because if you, as a player, or your child wants to be a professional soccer player, and they don't know how to control, pass, or dribble, which is the basis of the game, how are you going to do anything else? How are you going to be able to play at the highest level when you can't control, pass, or dribble? So when my friend said that, I laughed, and I'm like, again, that just summarizes our problem, because everybody's so focused on winning, they think that the winning part of it gets you to be a highly developed player, and it's not. That's not what a highly developed player is. Yes, you can have that mental toughness, be like, yeah, we can win, but that mental grit can only take you so far if you don't have the other fundamental pieces. So make sure you understand that the development has to come first in our model, unfortunately, with the model that we have. It has to come first in any model, but if we don't, we will continue to struggle to develop better players, period. To have a fundamental basis. But again, there's a disconnect when you go to the youth part of it, the younger version of that, to the competitive level, and the coaches are told they have to win. Because if they don't win, players are going to leave the club, and they're going to go somewhere else. Because again, we're not educated enough to understand that development has to come first. So it's this really vicious cycle, like almost seems like it's never going to end. And it's the guys and the individuals that are with smaller organizations that will truly get or be able to change that and change the model of how it works. Like somebody like me, right? And I'm fortunate enough, I've won this season alone, or this year alone, I've won 3 championships in terms of tournaments. I've won 3 tournaments. Now, I've done that because I've been developing players. Now, I'm not going to win every tournament. I'm not saying that I'm the prodigy of soccer coaching. That's not my point. But my point is, like, I've been working hard to develop the players, and we've had success now. So, success by developing players. But guess what? There's a lot of games that I lose because I don't let my players just clear the ball. They have to figure out how to play it out, right? And I can cut out a lot of losses by doing that. But making it easier on the kids, that they can take the easy way out, and I'm not pushing them to be better or demand more themselves by just clearing the ball, right? Instead of trying to figure out how to get the ball out, to combine with somebody to play out, that's so. I mean, I could go on all day about this, but I really want you to take that home. I really want you to take this and move forward with it. Model, okay? And it's essentially called compensation for formation, and it's a very different process. And the way it works is this. Basically, European clubs, not all of them, I will say not all of them, but a majority of them, they are completely free for players. Now, that completely flips the process and says, you know what? We as a club are going to take that and develop players. Now, they get to pick. They get a widespread. They can essentially pick the players they want, especially the big clubs. They can say, you know, we want this kid, we want this kid. So the pressure is on them to develop players, because when they do that, when they develop a player and signs a professional contract, if they develop the player within their own system, right? It's what the DA is supposed to do, right? Develop players and put them into the MLS club and things like that. When they're sold, there's a lot of money that gets transferred, lots and lots of money, right? When he signed his first contract with Real Madrid, his former club Olympique Lyonnais got 30 million euros, and they got a fat check of, and it's not as much, but it's called a solidarity for 500,000 euros just for developing Benzema when he was in the youth academy, because he spent his entire life at Olympique Lyonnais youth academy. So by doing that, the club to develop players and not the families, right? With pay to play in the system that we have right now, the way it's set up, it's on you as a player and the family to develop, versus having a joint process of saying, okay, it's between the club, the player, and the family. When pay to play, the way we're set up in this pay to play model is you have to get there. You have to go to, you got to go to your club practice, and you got to pay these private trainers. You have to do this, you have to do that, and then that way you shift together. Let's do it together, because we want to develop better players as a country, as a group, as a club. We want to be known for player development, right? For the MLS, to go play in Europe, to go play for the national team. Almost that the fact that I even have to do this rant like this, because I feel bad. And honestly, I feel bad because there's so many talented kids in this country, and I know that if we don't change the model, you're gonna get screwed. And it's just demoralizing, because there's honest people that want to try and help you, but everything is going to come down to, okay, can you pay this much? Can you do this? And it's just, it just doesn't look like it's going to change anytime soon. It doesn't look like there's an end in sight where there's the light at the end of the tunnel, because there's so much money now in youth sports and youth soccer in general that it's like, it almost feels like the process won't. I don't believe that until, and the first thing that has to happen is U.S. soccer mandates development, right? It says, clubs, your job is to develop better players, obviously in a fun process, whatever, but you have to develop players. If you don't, there's repercussions. We are going to continue to struggle to develop soccer players that can play at the highest level. I don't care what anybody says. Now, there's more of this rant I need to do, but I can't finish it right now. I'm going to try and do it later tonight. Tell me, as a player, do you feel like you understand what I'm talking about? Do you agree with it? Do you not? Let's chat, because honestly, it's my problem that we're having right now of this development process. Okay, I want to finish out my rant for pay to play, and I'm going to give it to you like this. Right now, unfortunately, I view soccer in this country as an elitist sport. Now, what I mean by that is you have to be essentially financially stable enough, right? You don't have to be super wealthy or anything like that, but you have to be financially stable enough to pay for your child's soccer experience, right? And it's, like I said earlier, it's only going to increase. So I'm just going to say on average, and this might be high in some areas, might be low in some other ones, you're going to spend about $5,000 over the course of a year from soccer training, right? For your coach's fees, for your travel fees, for your gas fees, for every fee that could go into an expense that goes into your soccer, your child's soccer experience, right? So again, that could be a tournament fee, whatever. And it's hard because there's a lot of the top talent, not only in this country but around the world, they don't have money. So how are players that can't afford it going to play? Now, some teams and clubs offer a scholarship, like one per team, which is great, but there's really no answer right now that provides an adequate solution for all the players that want to play that can't afford to play. And it's I don't want to say sickening, but it's heartbreaking, because there's some really good players that I worked with, and they just don't have the money. They couldn't go to, a Division II tryout for college, and they couldn't do a whole bunch of other things because they didn't have the money for it. And it's like, this is hurting our players. So right now, I'm not saying that there's a specific solution that fixes this, but we have to work together with, say, U.S. soccer and everybody to say, listen, how can we service these players that don't have the financial capabilities, especially in this model that we have in pay-to-play, where a parent has to pay for their child. Neymar, Mbappe, they all came from they didn't have wealth. They came from poorer areas, and they had that grit, that fight to make it. And it's hard. It really is hard. It's tough. And until then, arguably, our most talented players are going to continue to miss out on playing at the next level. Because, again, if you look at the best players in the world, Ronaldo, Messi,